Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's first video. We're doing the verification for the Spring 2018 forecast for today's first video. A little bit late with this. We normally try and get the verifications of the long range forecast done very early on in the following season, but been a bit waylaid for all different updates that have been going on just recently. Anyway, this is going to be the verification for the Spring 2018 forecast. So back at the end of February, we released GWV Spring forecast. We was predicting temperatures to be quite close to average, really. We wasn't sure if it would be like a little bit above average or maybe a little bit below average even, but we wasn't really anticipating a particularly strong deviation either way. What did show up very clearly was that we was expecting a cold start to the spring, a cold March, and then a real recovery into proper spring weather through April. And then May was a little bit unsure about, but we erred on the side that potentially it could be okay. So May was the joker in the pack month, if you like, of the spring forecast. It was the one that sort of created quite a bit of uncertainty within the overall forecast itself. It's very clear that March likely to start off really cold, and then April was likely to be a much milder month, much warmer month, of reversion to spring, and then May was the one we was quite uncertain about. As far as precipitation is concerned, we predicted sort of average to potentially slightly drier than average season for the spring of 2018. So we'll have a look now at the climate averages page at the UK Met Office and see how the forecast did. So we're going to begin with the mean temperature anomaly for the spring, set against 81 to 2010 averages, and you can see that what actually happened if we set against it, set it against 81 to 2010, is that the spring did indeed come out close to or a little bit milder average. Not a big deviation, but for example, Scotland close to average, Northern Ireland around average, much as Northern England around average, Wales, South West England around average too, central and eastern parts of England a little bit above average. So not a big deviation, but it's definitely a little bit warmer down in the south and the southeast. If we set the forecast against 81 to 2010 from a temperature perspective, it didn't go too bad. But of course, we've also got 61 to 1990 averages, and if we set against 61 to 1990, that kind of busts the forecast really, because it did come out significantly warmer than the 61 to 1990 average for the spring of 2018. So you pay your money and you take your choice. It just depends which average you choose to go with. I think increasingly, it's not because for this particular forecast it favours this forecast, but I think increasingly we have got to move over to 81 to 2010. In fact, I'm kind of thinking that after this year, I probably won't include 61 to 990 anymore, but that creates problems on its own because the central temperature, and we show that quite a lot in the daily videos, at Hadley, that is still set against 61 to 1990. So it's a choice we've got to make. But I think for the long range stuff anyway, have got the two averages. I think when this year is done, we'll still continue to show both the averages, I think, for the rest of this year. But I think when we get to next year, 2019, I think then we will properly, for the long range stuff, we still have to use it for the daily videos for the CET, but for the long range videos, I think we'll move exclusively to 81 to 2010, because it does seem a very long time since 61 to 1990. Really, this should have changed over, I think, some time ago. So we'll continue to show 61 to 1990 with these verification videos for the rest of this year, so that'll be up to the autumn forecast verification. But after that, I think next year it will begin with the winter 18-19 forecast, when we verify that at the beginning of March. I think that one will exclusively just look at spring 2018. I hope somebody will hold me to that, because I may forget when we come to verify the winter forecast next March. But I think it is time time now to move on to 61 to 1990 exclusively. Just run you through the months, see how they turned out. So we'll start with March. Let's go back to 81 to 2010. We'll start with March, and we can see that in March we had a pretty cold month. It was a colder average March, quite substantially so, set against 81 to 2010. If we set it against 61 to 1990, less so, but still generally on the colder than average side. That's April, set against 61 to 1990, a much warmer month, milder than average, pretty much all parts of the country. And also a little bit milder than average in the north, set against 81 to 2010, more substantially so in the south. But clearly we did get that reversion, whichever average is used. Obviously we did get that reversion from the cold March to proper spring in April, and then finally that's how May looks, set against 81 to 2010. Again, a warmer than average month for those parts of the country, set against 61 to 1990, even warmer, with anomalies around 2 degrees or more above average. And so that's how we come out with a warmer than average, substantially warmer than average spring, set against 61 to 1990, but closer to average, set against 81 to 2010. As far as precipitation was concerned, now this side of the forecast didn't do as well. So I think the temperature side actually didn't go too bad, particularly if you use 81 to 2010. But against the precipitation, not as good. Now Scotland and Northern England, or Northwestern England, and parts of Northern Ireland, quite interestingly, did come out with a rather drier than average spring. In fact, substantially so in the northern part of the country. But for much of England and Wales, actually it came out a wetter than average spring. So quite unexpectedly, it was driest in the northwest and kind of wettest in the south and the southeast, which is very unusual, especially in the spring. Can get that kind of deviation in summer when you talk about big thunderstorms. There's a lot of regional variation, but that's quite unusual anomalies in the spring for precipitation. So driest in the northwest and wettest in the southeast. I'm not sure that side of the forecast went all that well. It was set it against 61 to 90. Very little difference actually with precipitation. It's always with the temperature that things are different if you use the older temperature average. But for precipitation, it's the same broad pattern. Driest in the northwest, wettest in the south and in the southeast too. So that was the spring of 2018. It's a very strange season in many ways. It started off really cold. It got very warm as we went further on. We had that unusual combination in April of being both very warm but also wet. So very unusual things happening this spring, and these unusual weather patterns seem to be continuing now into the summer as well. So anyway, the forecast I think was fair to middling. Some parts it went okay. We did get the correct idea of the cold start and then the switch to proper spring in April. The temperature, particularly against 81 2010, that wasn't too bad. The precipitation side of things was less good. So, bit of mixed bag. So I suppose if you're doing it out of 10, you'd probably give maybe a 5 or a 6 out of 10, which is kind of somewhere in the middle. But I'll leave you to kind of just take the forecast and see what you thought to it. Really isn't, I don't suppose, for me to judge. It's for you to see what you think to the products and to the forecasts that we produce at GWV. Anyway, that closes the door on spring 2018. So that's done and dusted. We are, of course, now into the summer. So the summer forecast will be verified at the beginning of September. And then, of course, we'll be, now we are moving into the autumn updates increasingly. So autumn forecasts will be issued at the end of August. And then once we get to September, the bandwagon will roll on again to the winter update. So we never stop at GWV. We're always beavering away, coming up with these long-range updates and forecasts for you. Okay, later on today, we're going to have a look at all of the weather next week, 10 days. Got hot weather coming up next week, so we'll be looking at that, I'm sure. But for now, that's all for now, and thanks for watching.